in New York City. Bob Wischusen sitting in for Stephen A. Smith. It is the Stephen A. Smith Show, brought to you by Credit Karma. Get your truly free credit scores and free credit monitoring from Credit Karma today. Credit Karma, get knowing. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776 is the telephone number. We'll get to the phones. We've got a ton to talk about today. Opening day. Finally, we've got baseball. And it's starting even earlier than it normally does. But I'll tell you, if you live someplace like we live here in the Northeast, or you're somewhere in the Midwest and you have had just an absolutely brutal winter, and you live with ice and snow and sleet and freezing rain, when baseball comes back, it's like all of a sudden a palm tree popped up in your backyard. So knowing that we're going to have baseball, legitimate regular season, real baseball to talk about starting tomorrow. It is finally opening day, and Carl Ravitch is going to be right here in New York calling the Yankees-Orioles opener. He will join us at the top of the next hour. So we're going to do a baseball a little bit later on. We're going to start off with football, maybe sprinkle in a little NBA with some Harden Giannis stuff from last night. But there was a lot to talk about at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Again, Bob Wischusen sitting in for Stephen A. on a Wednesday afternoon. All right, I am the Cincinnati Bengals. The vote yesterday was 31-1 in favor of taking offensive and defensive pass interference and letting it go to review in the last 2 minutes from the booth. Coaches' challenges before that. 31 teams voted in favor of instant replay to be used on pass interference based on one horrible, awful, historically bad, maybe the worst non-call in the history of the sport that took place in the NFC Championship game in New Orleans last year. And I get it. I get that you want to make sure that you have the at your disposal at all times in case of emergency break glass solution so you never have that happen again. But to me, and I was hoping all through the offseason, the more you heard that this may be the way that they would go in the NFL, that cooler heads would prevail, and that they would say, you know what, we saw with the best officials we've got in our sport on the biggest stage in our sport, a championship game in one of our conferences, we saw two guys just freeze and not have the stones to make a call and throw a flag. And it was unbelievable that that happened, but that it really was a one in a million moment. In your life as a football fan, do you ever remember a non-call as bad or worse than that one, with as much riding on it as you did there? I don't, which is part of the reason why I thought cooler heads might prevail. And I thought they may say, let's not change this rule. Let's not open the Pandora's box of starting to take judgment calls and go to replay. And let's look at this kind of in a vacuum, that this call in the next 50 years of us watching football will probably not happen again on that stage. Having said that, though, I apparently am the Cincinnati Bengals because they are the only team that voted against going to replay for pass interference, offensive and defensive. And the reason that I am against it, and the reason that, and look, I work for a team. I work for the New York Jets. I'm their radio announcer. They voted for it. So their own employees coming out and saying, I disagree with them, I would have voted against it, is because not that I don't want to correct that call. Who wouldn't want to correct that call? Of course you want to correct that call. Of course you want to be able to find a way to make sure that a call that would have ended a championship game and altered which team played in the Super Bowl basically rode on that moment. Naturally, I would want to get that right. But to me, this goes towards the Pandora's box that now gets opened that I'm not sure they are fully thinking through. And the reason that I am against it is because as much as I want to get that call right, I just simply don't trust the people in charge of instant replay in the NFL to not take this and now go where replay has gone with all other types of calls in football, I think in baseball, at times in basketball. The problem, I think, with instant replay in all sports is that it has gone to a place it was never intended to go in the first place. Instant replay was supposed to correct the Don Denkinger blown call at first base in the World Series. That pass interference call in the NFC Championship game. right? Mike Renfro in the back of the end zone against the Steelers in a playoff game for the Oilers. The season-altering, potential championship-altering, 99 times out of 100, there's no way a human being with sight would get the call wrong, blown call. The call that's so obvious, so egregious, so brutally awful that you're going to take replay, you're going to correct that, make sure we get it right and move on. And yet what has happened with the technology and with the people in charge of that technology, it's become Frankenstein. To the point that they had to change what is a catch and not a catch based on the fact that replay was taking plays that had been catches for 100 years in football and telling us all they weren't catches. So they had to redefine the catch rule because of the unintended consequences of replay going way too far in the other direction. Because now we have gotten to the point with instant replay where we freeze frame plays, frame by frame by frame. Working for the Jets a couple of years ago, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, and any Jet fan, any football fan maybe, would remember this play against the Patriots, remember the highlight. Austin Seferian-Jenkins catches a ball, a little hook out in the left flat, turns upfield, gets hit, dives for the pylon, in through the corner of the end zone, lands out of bounds, but breaks the plane and goes through the end zone. Clearly a touchdown. For 100 years, it is a non-debatable touchdown. All the officials throw their hands up. But wait a minute. It's a scoring play, so it automatically has to go to replay. Well, what do they see in replay? He gets hit in midair, and for a nanosecond, for a freeze frame or two of a slowed down, super slow-mo, back it up, move it forward, back it up, move it forward, look at replay, you can see the ball just kind of jostle free in his arms. But then played at full speed. You can't with the naked eye even see that. And then he lands out of bounds with complete control of the ball. It's obviously a touchdown. What happens? Fumble. He fumbles it through the side of the end zone, Patriot ball out to the 20-yard line, complete game changer. And a call that in a million years was never, ever, ever intended to be used replay-wise to be changed. So I use that just as one of many, many examples. All right, now let's look at pass interference. How often are you going to have a pass interference call? That's nothing like what we saw in the NFC Championship game. Not only think about coaches' challenges for the first 56 minutes of the game, the first 28 minutes of each half, but how about the last 2 minutes of each half? Think about what we could now have with instant replay, with the booth initiating calls on not only flags thrown for pass interference, but non-calls. So it's a tie game, a three-point game, 25, 30, 35 seconds to go. Someone throws the ball over the middle. Wide receiver goes up, bang, bang, play. Literally as the ball arrives, defensive back comes in, knocks the ball away. What do you think the team that is looking for the call, and maybe if it was outside of the last 2 minutes, just for the heck of it, might throw a challenge flag if they had them left, their sideline, and especially if they're the home team, the entire stadium is going to be screaming for every play like that to be reviewed. For the booth to buzz down, let's take another look at it. Think about the number of plays that we could have in the last 2 minutes of a first half, and oh my God, with the game on the line, the last 2 minutes of the game, where all of a sudden, before you run the next play, the replay booth is going to have to buzz down to see if maybe someone grazed a wide receiver just a shade too early. And now it may be, in this era of looking for things to overturn, rather than only using replay to overturn the most egregious things, looking for things to overturn, that you may get constant stoppages in the last 2 minutes of each half because of potential game-changing plays. There's no penalty in all of football that more greatly alters the outcome or can than pass interference. It's the only penalty in football that can be over 15 yards, right? What other penalty in football can be a 30, 40, 50-yard penalty? Hail Marys might have to go to the replay booth just to see if maybe a defensive back on a jump ball grazed a guy a little early, altered his ability to get to the ball. Now all of a sudden you get the ball at the 1 yard line. Because if you slow it down on super slow-mo instant replay and you see even a hint of a non-flag thrown pass interference, and now you've got the ability to change that call, you really don't have an excuse not to. I think it's terrible. And I would have been right there with the Bengals voting against it. When you start to go to replay on calls that are judgment calls, you start to bring much more of a human out. This is no longer, did he break the plane or not? Did he step out of bounds or not? Did he catch it or not? The black and white line calls that have to do with, you're supposed to be able to see, like, without a doubt evidence that you got the call right or wrong. This is now a judgment call. How many times are you watching a game where you see a play that you would call pass interference that the guy on the field didn't? Or how many times would you see a play that you wouldn't have called pass interference, but the guy on the field threw the flag? Then you go to replay. It's pretty 50-50. You don't think that human element comes into play in the replay center in New York? I cover college football for ESPN. About 3 or 4 years ago, myself and a handful of broadcasters went to the instant replay convention for all college replay guys in Chicago. And they booked this hotel for a couple days, big ballroom, couple hundred guys that are the replay booth officials at all college football games. And what they do is they give everybody a clicker, like a yes or a no little handheld remote. And up on a screen, they'll put up different plays. And they will say, this was the call that was made in the game. Should the call stand, or would you reverse it on replay? And you either hit yes or no. For yes, let the call stand, or no, they got it wrong. Replay should review it. And I'm telling you, if they put up 40 examples, maybe a handful of them were pretty much unanimous. There were a lot of calls that they put up on the screen that the guys that are actually in the replay booths at college football games would vote, and it would be like 60-40 or 70-30, meaning depending on the guy that you had in the replay booth, he was going to make the call that could potentially change the outcome of the game. And if it had been a different guy in a different replay booth, the outcome of the game would have been different because two different people would have voted in opposite directions. So there is a human element to this where now you go to pass interference as a reviewable call, and you are opening a Pandora's box that I wish they never would have opened. And I'm not sure now where it stops. Why do you draw the line at pass interference? Just because it's a game-changing call? Why not include roughing the quarterback? Maybe the guy touched him, maybe he didn't. Maybe your version of roughing the quarterback and how hard a quarterback got hit and how much a guy drove him into the ground, maybe your definition differs from mine. This is the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. So if you want to give me a call and tell me why I'm wrong, feel free at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. But I can see this becoming end-of-game drama, end-of-game controversy, law of unintended consequences, where they never, ever thought that replay with a lot of other calls would go. To me, with pass interference, it could go times 10. You're going to slow these replays down frame by frame by frame, and you may get a guy who's playing really well in the secondary. He's going to see a ball thrown over the middle. He's going to go up and try and time it, and he's going to hit a wide receiver, a nanosecond early. And I guess by the book definition, that's pass interference. You hit him a little early, it's pass interference. Might be to you, may not be to me, or maybe it is to me and not to you. Judgment call. Going to replay? Very, very dangerous precedent. Very dangerous precedent. And again, they were 31-1 in favor of it. I would have been a voice of dissension. If I was a team owner or a team general manager, it would have been 30-2 because I would have been standing right there next to the Bengals saying, I don't like it. The one other thing, a couple of other football topics that drew my attention. I was at Indiana last night calling an NIT game, so kind of in and out of the practices all day. Didn't hear a lot of talk shows, but over the last couple of days, the news comes out that Rob Gronkowski retires. And I was amazed, just scanning Twitter, at the back and forth at times on Twitter of people saying that Rob Gronkowski might not be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, ultimately, Rob Gronkowski is, no doubt about it, Hall of Famer. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. But when you talk about a first ballot guy, you are talking about, putting a guy on a different level. To me, that now has become the line in the sand where you're like a special Hall of Famer or not if you get in on the first, maybe the second ballot. It means you're a no-brainer Hall of Famer. You're a guy that automatically goes in. Because the Hall of Fame or Halls of Fame in different sports has been watered down a bit. And let's be honest, we have put guys into Halls of Fame in different sports that were good players but not great. Were great players but not immortal. In what universe is Gronk not a first ballot Hall of Famer? Rob Gronkowski, I think, is the most dominant player to ever play his position. If you are the most dominant player to ever play your position, you are by definition a first ballot Hall of Famer. No one changed how defenses had to guard that position the way that guy did, especially in the red zone. But even look at his yards per catch. He was unstoppable. If you are by definition unstoppable, you are by definition a first ballot Hall of Famer. To only play 9 years, be number 1, number 3, yards per game, receiving touchdowns for your position. And I'm telling you right now, living with the Jets and living in that division for the last decade, there have been players that the Bills and the Dolphins and the Jets have gone out and drafted purely based on the presence of that guy. Gronk altered how teams drafted. Gronk altered how teams deployed their entire group of troops defensively. You played different defenses against the Patriots when he was on the field than you played against any other opponent during the season. Look, there are other great tight ends. There are the Gateses and Gonzaleses of the world, and those guys are great, great players. And they're also automatic Hall of Famers. But none of them were as dominant as this guy was. I was stunned at the number of people that even thought it was a debate as to whether or not Rob Gronkowski was a first ballot Hall of Famer. You're a dominant player at that level? You're not a first ballot Hall of Famer? You better believe you are. And that is the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. All right, we'll get to some phone calls here. We'll squeeze in as many as we can during the first hour because Carl Ravitch is going to have the call of Yankees-Orioles tomorrow on opening day. We're going to talk baseball with him at the top of the next hour. So let's get right to it and talk to Pete, who joins us first here on ESPN Radio. Bob Wischusen in for Stephen A. What's up, Pete?
Hey, Bob. How you doing? Thanks for taking my call. I respect your opinion. As a Saints fan, as egregious as the Cincinnati Bengals have been with Pac-Man and Vontae Burfict, of course they're going to vote no. They've marauded people, and then I'm here in L.A. on the Rams side, you got 3 goons in the back with Talib, Peters, and I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name. We're playing the game of football, technique, spirited, sportsmanship, period, hands down. As a Saints fan, yeah, we made a mistake. Maybe we should have ran it instead of passing it. Great. But you got 4 to 5 people from Southern Cal calling the game, biased.
Well, now you want to get to conspiracy theories? I actually kind of lost whatever you were talking about there. I think you were agreeing with me. I'm not 100% sure. And if you're that deep into the phone call and I still don't know what you're talking about, we move on to the next guy. We go to Brian, who joins us next here on ESPN Radio. What's up, Brian?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for taking my call.
You got it.
For the most part, I totally agree with you. It's a dumb rule change. It's going to slow the game down for one, and it's gonna affect too much.
Here's my problem with it. The goal of replay is to eliminate controversy, not create more of it. To me, when you're reviewing judgment calls, you are potentially going to create more controversy, not lessen. I think we will have more debates on Mondays about whether or not a replay review of a pass interference call got it right than we have as to whether or not the officials have gotten the call right in the first place right now. I think this is going to create more controversy, not create less. And to me, that's a problem. When you open the Pandora's box of reviewing judgment calls, your eyes may see and interpret something different than my eyes will. And in the last 2 minutes, when challenges are out the window, and now all replays have to come from the booth, and the booth is going to have to initiate whether or not only on a flag thrown, but on a non-call. That means every single time in the last 2 minutes of a close game, when a defensive back is anywhere near a wide receiver, somebody's going to want to review. Either a flag's going to be thrown, and the team that had the flag thrown against them is going to want the booth to take another look at it. A flag won't be thrown, and the team that feels like they were victimized and they should have gotten a pass interference call, they're going to want the booth to review it. You're going to have on almost every passing play in the last 2 minutes of a close game, one sideline or the other sideline exploding, not happy, and wanting the booth to take another look at a play. Think about watching football right now. How often do you see a wide receiver at the end of a play where he doesn't make the catch, throw his arms up in the air looking for a flag from somewhere? I mean, it happens like on almost every passing play in the NFL. It's like a wide receiver's version of being a golfer, shanking one and then looking at his club. Oh, it turned in my hand, right? Even when you don't make a good play on the ball, even when it's your fault, you dropped it. You're automatically turning around, throwing your hands up, and looking for a flag. Now, in the last 2 minutes of close games especially, all of those plays could go to the replay booth. You're the replay booth. Or you are New York and you want to initiate a replay of a call that was or was not just made. You see a guy on the monitor from way up in the sky or at the broadcast center throw his arms up. You're going to sit there and go, oh, we got to look at it. We have no choice. It's a 3-point game, minute and a half to go. It's going to be a 30-yard penalty if it either does or does not get called. I don't like it. And all based on a call that was so egregious, so awful, so mind-numbingly inept that those two guys who were both looking at it in the NFC Championship game neither threw the flag, that I don't think on that stage, in that spot, we will ever see a blown call that bad again. But now we're going to take the ends of all of these games and potentially throw them into pass interference replay chaos based on something I really don't think in our lifetimes we're ever going to see again. That's how bad that missed call was. 888-SAY-ESPN. 888-729-3776. Bob Wischusen sitting in for Stephen A. Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. And coming up when we get back as well, I'm going to bring up the team that I think is the most interesting team in the draft and the team that I think may alter the draft for everybody else in the top, say, dozen or so picks. And we will definitely get back to your telephone calls. If you're on hold, stay right there because, you know, I see a lot of people lined up and want to talk about instant replay now, having governance over pass interference, yay or nay. If you haven't tried the delicious high-quality meat from Butcher Box, you're going to be blown away. Butcher Box brings you the meat, and it's meant to be the way you want it. You get all the benefits you're supposed to get. Unbelievable flavor, unparalleled nutrition. They work closely with the best farms and companies committed to raising animals humanely, from grass-fed beef to free-range organic chicken to wild-caught sockeye salmon from Bristol Bay, Alaska. Butcher Box has over 20 different cuts of meat to choose from with customizable boxes and a variety of other options to choose from. And Butcher Box comes at an affordable price. With free shipping, you can get a month's worth of the best-tasting meat from Butcher Box for less than $6 a meal. Butcher Box is offering Stephen A's listeners free ground beef for the life of your subscription and $20 off your first box when you sign up at butcherbox.com/Stephen A. Don't miss out on this special offer. Go to butcherbox.com/Stephen A. That's butcherbox.com/Stephen A. Bob Wischusen sitting in on the Stephen A. Smith Show. We'll come right back on ESPN Radio.
Here's the Select Quote term life insurance difference. Most companies give you one option, one policy, one rate. But Select Quote shops and gets you up to